Oh, what's going on, guys? It's Simple Sports back again with another video for you. Today's going to be a little different, so I want to give you guys a really quick update again. So basically, my last video, something happened with the video and it got corrupted. So I ended up pretty much just doing audio overlay on top of the image and whatnot. And I decided, given my current situation and the lack of equipment and the lack of time, it actually may be easier. It was kind of a blessing in disguise. It may be easier for me to do sort of a podcast style, I guess, show, or radio show, I guess, if you want to call it that. It's not radio, obviously, but you get the idea. Just time and efficiency wise, at least until I can get the things that I need in order to make things go a little bit smoother. So that's probably what I'm going to do. At least I'm going to try between now and, whenever I get that equipment. So just so you know, no video. So I want to talk about Colin Kaepernick, okay? And I have a lot of things to say about it. I've actually made this video, this recording. This is my third time, and I figured I just need to condense what it is that I'm trying to say because I felt like I was rambling, and I want to make sure that my point is clearly heard and understood correctly, and my position is understood correctly. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do here. Okay. So first, let me start off with this. Let's talk about what it is that actually happened in a nutshell. Basically, Colin Kaepernick took a knee in protest of race inequality and police brutality and all of those things, right, involving people of color, right? And there's been some backlash over it, obviously. People that agree, people that don't agree, people that are on the fence. And the big story now is, why is it that he remains unsigned? And I'm going to get into all that and what my stance is, but I want to give a little background here first. As I was growing up, I grew up in a really small town, very southern, very, at least a lot of, I don't want to discredit or diminish the people that I grew up with, but there were a lot of people that looked at me kind of funny, looked at my family kind of funny because of the color of our skin. And not only that, but at school I had to deal with it a little, going out in public. And then when I got to college and I started to mature is when I really started to understand that all the things that my parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts and cousins and teachers and coaches, I really started to understand all the things that they were saying to me as I started to experience it more firsthand. Not to say that I didn't experience it when I was younger, but I just didn't understand what it was exactly what's happening to me. And I say all that to say this. Colin Kaepernick took the knee and sat during the anthem, and people obviously had some backlash to it. And I want to, before I even really get into the details of all of this stuff, okay, I want to do one thing first. I want to make sure that my position and my point is not misinterpreted or misunderstood by anyone, regardless of what side of the fence you fall on, okay? So with that said, I personally disagree wholeheartedly with the gesture of kneeling or sitting or in any way, shape, or form, I guess, quote unquote, disrespecting the singing and presentation of the flag and the singing of the national anthem, right? I have family members, cousins, and friends, co-workers who have been shipped off to the military to fight for the country. And in that regard, it does not sit right with me for someone to kneel or sit during the national anthem. With that said, I have zero issue with what Colin Kaepernick is doing, and I don't because I, unlike a lot of people, am not ignoring his message. And that's really what this whole video is about. There's been a lot of backlash from fans, from casual observers, from analysts, from players, from coaches, politicians, you name it. There have been people that have been on or against Colin Kaepernick, on his side or against him. And here I want to talk about the things that and that's going to happen, right? Obviously, if you make a statement or a protest, not everyone is going to see it the way you do. That's just reality, and that's all fine and good. What bothers me is people are trying to separate, or excuse me, they won't separate the issue at hand from the gesture bringing attention to that issue. No one wants to talk about what it is he was protesting. Inequality of races. No one wants to talk about that. Instead, everyone wants to talk about how disrespectful it was for him to kneel or sit during the national anthem. Some have equated it to burning the flag, which is nonsense, and so many other things, right? Here's my issue. I don't care, first of all, what side you fall on, okay? Forget it. It doesn't even matter to me. Why is it that you still don't want to talk about the issue? The issue is race inequality. That's what his message was. That's what he was trying to bring attention to. And rather than bring attention to that, we've brought more attention to the gesture of him kneeling or sitting during the anthem and how it disrespects the anthem and the flag and the country. I don't care, because we still haven't addressed the issue. We can address the gesture later, right? We could fix the gesture. There's more than one way to get from point A to point B, but the goal is to get to point B. And as long as we address the issue, I have no problem talking about the gesture, but we haven't addressed the issue yet. That's my first problem. Stop ignoring the issue. Stop ignoring the message. Listen to what the message is. And there's a lot of people out there, specifically white people, who just simply won't get it because they either won't try to understand it, don't care to understand it because it doesn't affect them, or they don't care. And that really bothers me, because you have people who feel like they are being overlooked, they're being mistreated, they're being mishandled in certain situations, and it bothers them, and that bothers me too. Okay, so that's the first issue. Let's talk about the actual issue at hand and not just dismiss it, and instead talk about the gesture and how disrespectful it is. That's my first problem. Second problem, the biggest problem for me, and what really, really saddens me and discourages me and really gets under my skin and bothers me as a black male, is that the amount of excuses and reasons for all of these things happening, it really bothers me. This is what I took from, or this is what I currently take from the entire situation from the NFL's point of view. Goodell and owners and GMs and other players have all come out and said, yeah, you can protest it, but just like this isn't the stage for it, and yada, yada, yada. When and where is the right time for him to protest? Evidently what he's doing is wrong. So if this is wrong, then what is the right way to do what he did? What is the right way to get whatever message it is that he was trying to send? What is the right way to send that message? Since you all have such an issue or a problem with the way he did it, then please tell us what is the right way to do it, because evidently we don't know. And it appears that everything that we do to send that message falls on deaf ears. Peaceful protests in his case, and now he's not in the league. When you have criminals, drug users, alcoholics, drunk drivers, domestic violence committers, I guess that's not a word, but, or offenders, that, like, those people are still playing. But here's a guy that made a peaceful protest and he's nowhere to be found. Like, that bothers me, right? Just that in and of itself. Then you have the people that say, well, he's not that skilled. Well, Tebow wasn't that skilled. RG3 doesn't appear to be that skilled. Now, he's a little bit different because he actually did win some games his rookie year. But guess what? Colin Kaepernick took a team to a Super Bowl and was a throw away from getting back to the Super Bowl for a second time, and was also a throw away from simply winning a Super Bowl. So don't tell me he's not skilled, because I don't care how average you are. You have to be a serviceable quarterback to get to that point, right? Cody Kessler ain't going to the Super Bowl next year. Jared Goff ain't going to the Super Bowl next year. Tom Savage ain't going to the Super Bowl next year. They're not that skilled. So don't tell me he's not skilled. Okay, that makes no sense. Last year he had 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. His numbers aren't great. They never were phenomenal. But he's better. Use your eyes, okay? That's what they tell you. Does he pass the eye test? He's better than, I looked this morning, about 8 to 10 quarterbacks that I would take simply based on skill alone. This year, I'd take Colin Kaepernick over about 8 to 10 quarterbacks. That's just me. And then there's people that say, well, the protest and distraction is what is keeping him away from a team. I don't buy that for a second. Greg Hardy was a distraction. Johnny Manziel was a distraction before he even got into the league. He was a distraction. RG3 was a distraction. Tim Tebow was a huge distraction. They all got chances. Johnny Manziel is still being looked at by teams. So don't tell me it's a distraction. That is baloney. It's not because he's a distraction. There are plenty of people that got multiple chances, and they were distractions. Michael Vick got another chance. But his issue wasn't race-related. He was simply a criminal who committed a criminal act, got out of jail, and got another chance. Here's a guy in Colin Kaepernick who is a peaceful protester of inequality amongst races and can't get a job. Why? Because that cause doesn't benefit the NFL at all. That's why. It makes a lot of people uncomfortable. It alienates a large portion of their fan base. Not to say that they won't watch, but it makes some of them uncomfortable. It gives them something to argue about, and there are people that fall on either side of the fence. And overall, it doesn't benefit the NFL. And what bothers me about that is it comes off to me as if the NFL is saying you can protest whatever it is you want to protest. You just can't do it here because it doesn't benefit us. Something as important as the equality of lives amongst different races doesn't fall under the umbrella of things that are important to the NFL. That really bothers me. As someone who was once an aspiring NFL player, I wanted to play in the NFL. Obviously, that didn't work out. Didn't even come close to it. But to know that my boss basically would say, unless you are benefiting us, you need to do what it is that we say or do for you to do. And that, like, it bothers me that this guy made a peaceful protest and now all of a sudden not in the league. And I don't want to hear the excuses because Tebow was a distraction and he was unskilled. He was on he had an opportunity to play for 4 different teams. And 4 teams in a relatively short span. And they knew the guy couldn't play. Tim Tebow can't play quarterback. Not in the NFL. They know the guy can't play. He got a chance. Why can't Kaepernick get a chance? I don't get it. He was a distraction, and he was unskilled. He was a huge distraction, and he was unskilled. And he got a chance to play. I don't get it. But his quote-unquote was just an overall media circus. Whereas Colin Kaepernick's distraction is brought upon by race-related issues that he's protesting. And to have someone, because here's what I do know. For Kaepernick to do what he did, regardless of what side you fall on, for him to actually physically take a knee with millions of people watching week in and week out, for him to do what he did to protest race inequality and have these people talk about it, for him to physically go out on camera in front of all these people and take a knee takes a lot of you know what. And for the NFL to simply say what you are protesting is not worthy to be done on this stage, you know, that really bothers me, especially considering the majority of your players are African American. Like, the people that make you your money, you in turn don't want to give them the opportunity to tell the people that actually have the control, these things are bothering us. Race inequality, police brutality, lack of jobs, lack of education, lack of this, lack of that, lack of money, lack of all of these things. They don't matter to the NFL because it doesn't benefit them to have them happen on their stage. And that's really discouraging, because at the end of the day, basically what they're telling you is you're still black. You're good at football. You speak well. You save your money. You don't blow all your money. You make smart moves. You make smart investments, smart decisions with your money. By and large, a great citizen and someone that kids and younger people can look up to and admire. But we're not going to help you with your cause because it doesn't put any more money in our pocket. Could you imagine the amount of success that would come from the NFL actually helping Colin Kaepernick? The giant leap forward that the entire world and society would take if they were to actually get behind him in some way and help him. But instead, they send him to the corner out in the shed and say, no, not here. It bothers me. It really does. It really does. And I get it from a business perspective. Like, obviously, yeah, it doesn't help the NFL because, again, it does divide people in that regard. And it's not like you're dividing people on which team is better. You're dividing people on something that we have been dealing with for 400 or 500 years. That is of grave importance. People have lost their lives fighting for equality. And rather than help, like, the guy is just sent off to the shed. Like, no, not here. Can't do it here. Won't tolerate it. It really does bother me. It really does. I don't know how you fix it or any of those things, but it's disturbing. You know, it really is. It bothers me because, again, they're simply saying to you, you're still black. I don't care what you've done for our team, what you've done for this. You're still black, and those issues cannot be discussed here. And they have the perfect cover for it as far as the NFL goes. It makes sense. Well, it's going to divide locker rooms. It's going to divide the fan base, maybe the owners. And, you know, it's just not a good look for the NFL and all of these things. But you have one of your own that you are literally casting out and saying you can't come here because you are in support of what black people have been trying to get accomplished for 400 years. And that bothers me. It really does. I don't really know what else to say on the matter. As I said, this is the third time I've recorded this. It really does bother me, you know, that those things are still happening. It's like, no matter what I've ever done, to some people, I'm just a black dude. Less than they are. And for Kaepernick to take the stance that he took and now be looked at as some villain, like, it says a lot about other people. It really does. It says a ton about a lot of people. This guy took a knee for something he believed in. And again, regardless of what side you fall on, forget the gesture, forget the fact that he took a knee during the anthem. His message is about race inequality. Does that not matter to the people? to the fans, to the owners, to the players, to the coaches, to the staff, to the commissioner, to the fans, to the other analysts out there? Because if it doesn't, then we really know what this whole thing is about, right? It ain't about the fact that he took a knee during the anthem. It ain't about the fact that he's unskilled. It ain't the fact that he's a distraction. The real problem to me is that what he's doing doesn't benefit the NFL, and there are people out there who won't listen to his message and instead want to talk about the flag and not the people that are being discriminated against and mistreated and mishandled and talked down on and looked at as less than human, and have had this done to them for years, 300, 400, 500 years, generation after generation, and they can't make any progress. And they're telling you to your face, you want to protest in your own home, on your YouTube channel with your 1 million followers, or your 2 million followers, or your 10 million followers. We don't care. You want to protest on Twitter and comment on someone's Facebook post and Instagram, we don't care. But what we will not do is give you this big of a stage with millions upon millions of people watching to get that message out, because that's one that we don't like. It doesn't help us. And that really bothers me quite a lot. So that's all I got to say about that. I pretty much just spilled my guts for the third time. So I've literally talked about this for about an hour and a half now in total. And there's a lot of things that I said in my other videos that I didn't say in this video. And at this point, I don't care. What I would like for someone to do is give me a reasonable, legitimate explanation as to why Colin Kaepernick has not been signed by anyone. There are 96, give or take, depending on how many teams have how many quarterbacks on their team. But from 1 through 3 on 32 teams, there are 96 people playing quarterback in the National Football League. And you cannot tell me that Colin Kaepernick is number 97. Because he's got the skill to be 1 through 96. I don't care where you want to place him. He's in that 96 somewhere. Don't BS me, okay? Now, I didn't play in the NFL or anything like that, but I'm not a dummy. I know football. I've studied it and watched it, played it my entire life. He's one of the best 96 quarterbacks. He's one of the 96 top human beings on the planet right now to play quarterback in the National Football League. So don't tell me he's unskilled. Now, if you want to stick with the distraction aspect and say how it's not good for business and yada, 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 I get that. It makes sense. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's not a valid point. It's definitely a valid point, but it ain't right.